It's Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. Please note that you're able to provide public comment. Please register by sending an email to ocpc@seattle.gov with public comment in the subject line. We will also allow for community members attending by phone to register for public comment by voice. For those wishing to do so at the beginning of the public comment period, when prompted, please unmute yourself and say your name to register. Speakers must be registered in order to be recognized by the chair. And if you are unable to attend the remote meeting, my apologies, please submit written comments to the Community Police Commission. Again, that's at ocpc@seattle.gov. The Seattle Community Police Commission acknowledges that we are on the traditional land of the Coast Salish people, including the Muckleshoot, Suquamish, and Duwamish people, past and present. With humility, we recognize how much we benefit from living on their land and water. The Seattle Community Police Commission honors and lifts up these tribes. We hope that this acknowledgement will encourage authentic relationships with urban Native people and all Coast Salish tribes. Again, I want to just thank everybody for joining us this morning, and I will turn the meeting over to co-chairs.
Thank you, Brandy. I'm getting a note that my internet connection is unstable today, which, like, of course it would be. So just bear with me and feel free to holler if folks can't hear me or if I need to turn off my camera to try to improve things. Reverend Walden, I'm realizing we didn't split up the agenda, which is fine, but if you are, I don't know if you're like on right now, but I see your square, but I'm wondering, do you want to take the first part of the agenda up until maybe the series of votes, and then I can jump in, or I can just start now if you're not available. All right, then I'll just get started.
Yeah, I'm having a problem with my computer right now, so
okay.
I'm gonna have to come back in. I'm having problems.
Okay, so, no worries.
I'll come back in.
I'll get started.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can folks hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Douglas.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll just go ahead and get started while Reverend Walden works on her tech issues, and hopefully I don't have any as either. And I turned off my camera because my computer's going slow. So everyone should have received the agenda and minutes for today and from our last meeting. Hopefully folks have had a chance to review the agenda and the minutes. One item to add to our action items section. So this is an amendment to the agenda. I'd like to ask for a motion to amend the agenda, and then we can approve it. I think I'm doing that in the right order. A motion to amend the agenda to include the statement that went around regarding OPA and SPD this morning. So would anyone like to make a motion to
This is Alina.
Today's agenda with that amendment? Hi, Alina.
Sorry. I can make a motion to approve that.
Well, I'm wondering, do we need to take attendance first?
We might, Reverend Hunter. I think I think that's ahead of the first thing on the agenda, so thank you. Brandy, I don't have a roster in front of me. Would you be able to take attendance? If not, I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get it pulled up, please. Give me just a second.
Okay, thank you.
What is going on here? Okay.
Hey, everyone. Prachi? Is Prachi in attendance? Is that
Present.
Thank you. Good morning. Austin?
Present, sir.
Reverend Hunter?
Present.
Tasha?
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning. Officer Mullins?
Officer Mullins is present.
Morning. Thank you. Erica?
Present.
Thank you. Good morning. Eilena?
Present.
Good morning. Joseph?
Here, present.
Good morning. Thank you. Catherine?
Present.
Douglas?
Here.
Reverend Walden?
Here.
And Lajaya. Okay. That concludes the attendance portion. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We need to review and approve minutes from the last meeting. Unfortunately, because we were not able to meet quorum, the agenda and minutes from the previous meeting, which is why this meeting is a little packed, y'all will need to go back and review and approve minutes from January 5th, 2022. So if someone could a motion to approve the agenda and minutes. I don't know if we have to separate it, but approve the agenda. We'll start with that. Approve the agenda from January 5th, 2022.
Is this to approve the agenda with the addition that was stated earlier?
Reverend Hunter, I couldn't hear you.
It was recommended that an additional item be added to the agenda. And I'm asking if you would like a motion to approve the agenda as recommended with that additional item in it.
No, that's for the upcoming, that's for today's agenda. I just need a motion to approve the agenda from the last meeting on January 5th, 2022.
Okay. So
But that wasn't a real meeting though, so we don't have to approve the meeting because we didn't have the ballot, we didn't have a quorum that day. So we can't go back to fix anything if we didn't have a quorum, is my understanding, but Teresa might be on there to give us a clear understanding. That meeting was actually, we didn't have a quorum, so we didn't really have a meeting. It could not go down as a meeting because it wasn't a meeting. It was the third time third time ever that we did not have a quorum. It's my understanding.
Reverend Walden, this is Gary. I'm here for the CAO. I'm filling in for Teresa today. I think you're correct. If there was never a quorum, then it wasn't actually a meeting of the CPC and no need to retroactively approve any agenda. I think that's correct.
Okay, that wasn't my understanding, but thank you for that, for clarifying that. All right, then we'll move forward with reviewing and approving the agenda for today.
So we just got that today.
Thank you for that. All right, then we'll move forward with reviewing and approving.
And so Reverend Patricia's motion would be, Reverend Patricia, could you restate your motion for
I move that the agenda be approved as amended.
I step away from the chair and I will second that motion. Douglas, did you want to call for the question then to go so we can vote on the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The January 19th agenda is adopted. Let's move forward with the draft minutes.
I'm wondering, Brandy, if the same rule applies for the minutes as with the agenda, so we don't have to approve the minutes if we didn't have a meeting.
You're right. You're right.
Right. Yes. Right. Yeah.
All right.
Now we would just go to the next item on the agenda. I can't pull mine up, so I'm not functioning here. I don't know what's happening, but it's okay. All is well, whatever it is. So I don't have the agenda in front of me because I can't pull it up. So I don't know what the next item is. It the land acknowledgement is the next thing on the agenda?
No, we've already done it. Reverend Walden Douglas is back on, and we're actually at the action items review.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Douglas, if you're back on, I'm gonna go on mute and let you take it from action items review.
That sounds good. And just to get caught up though, so what have we approved so far? I'm sorry, my computer was.
We were not able to. We didn't have to approve the agenda and minutes from the last meeting because we didn't make quorum. So the only thing we had to approve was the agenda for today.
Okay, perfect. And was it amended to include the statement?
Yes.
Okay, great. Perfect. All right. So we're on action item review. Great. So the first action item is to follow up on this. And Reverend Walden, would you mind muting yourself? Can you hear me? Thank you so much. Hopefully that'll solve it. Thank you, Reverend Walden. Is to follow up on the CPC question regarding legal requirements for the Office of Inspector General record keeping. So I don't know what our latest update of that is. This was a question that was raised in our last meeting regarding what are the requirements around OIG keeping records. Brandy, or do we have a legal counsel on the line?
Yes, Commissioner Gary Smith here with the City Attorney's Office. And so I wasn't present to hear the actual question. So let me know if this doesn't answer your question, but every city department is required to maintain records pursuant to a records retention schedule. That is a schedule that's developed with the City Records Management Program that's run out of the City Clerk's Office, managed by the City Clerk's Office. Those schedules are developed and adopted in consultation with the state, Secretary of State in the archives section. Once adopted, they do have legal effect, and that is because of the Records Retention Act, RCW Chapter 40.14, which requires the preservation of public records pursuant to duly adopted records retention schedules. So again, those schedules, though, are developed by the city. They are approved by the Secretary of State, but once they are approved and in effect, then they do essentially have the force of law because of the underlying Records Retention Act and its requirement to maintain records pursuant to a records retention schedule. So every department either has a specific records retention schedule, or there's also a general records retention schedule that applies to all city departments that has categories of records and retention periods that are assigned to each of those categories of records. So I hope that answers your question, but if there are follow-up questions, please feel free to let me know.
Mr. Smith, I did have a follow-up question. Thank you. This is Austin Field. I'm another commissioner. When it comes to records, are there laws that govern exactly what kind of records need to be created? Because I understand that once a record is created, it's subject to these retention policies. But to give the example of OIG, if all the senior leadership in OIG are having a meeting to make policy decisions, are they required to keep some kind of record of that conversation?
Not necessarily. There's not. There are obligations. For example, for the CPC is required to take minutes and to preserve those minutes of its meetings. But that's because the CPC is considered subject to the Open Public Meetings Act, and there are separate requirements that are triggered in that context. But if it's just a meeting of the executive members of a city department, then there is no similar obligation to keep minutes or create any records. Records Retention Act is more concerned with maintaining records rather than the creation of any specific records.
So you could have an agency operating with no real paper trail if they and the elected officials that oversee them were okay with that, basically.
I mean, conceivably, it may not be the best business decision.
Sure,
but yeah.
sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Austin, for helping remind us where that question came from. So the next item is a follow-up on OPA case 202, the number is 202 OPA-0749. And this is the case that's been in the news the past couple weeks related to the SPD ruse, where there was a number of SPD officers who were involved in essentially coming up with a lie that Proud Boys were marching around Seattle and marching towards protesters on Capitol Hill. And the investigation that then followed after Omari from Converge Media and others brought it to OPA's attention. And I mean, related to this in terms of action items today, we've amended the agenda to include a statement that folks on the governance committee and staff helped draft. Austin helped kick this off, so thank you to Austin. And then other folks had additions, so it was a collaborative effort. So, you know, maybe we could start by seeing if there's any discussion on the statement that went out this morning, and then we could open, and perhaps we could take a vote on it, and then we could open this up if there is any broader kind of discussion on this item. The draft statement went around early this morning for if folks are checking their emails. And so I guess I'll just pause and see if there is any discussion on this item. All right, I'm not hearing a question. Oh yeah, Officer Mullins.
I'm not completely understanding what, not to say that it was wrong or right, but what the complete objection to the radio ruse, as I understand it, what is the, what would be the main problem with it? I guess I would say.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody can tell me.
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I mean, Reverend Walden, go ahead. I see your hand is raised.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Well, thank you, Officer Mullen, for that question. One of the first thing is that it went out to city departments and Settlement City.
Oh, I lost you.
Reverend Walden, we lost your sound.
Reverend Walden.
And to say that in a time of already heightened activity in Seattle was just like, it was worse than a bad joke. I mean, it had city agencies now who have sent emails, said that they were preparing. I mean, and it came from the Emergency Operations Center, And so if an email went from the Emergency Operations Center to other departments in the city, the departments in the city was preparing for an event.
Okay. The way I understood it, it was broadcast over the radio, not an email. I didn't understand.
That's because the investigation wasn't as thorough as it could have been, and there's also new information that previous OPA director had been in the Emergency Operation Center at one time in his career, and did not, there was not a thorough investigation on this, and I think that was the main problem. It's not a thorough investigation. It did go out to other agencies for them to prepare. I mean, if you think the Proud Boys are coming, do you need more help? I mean, what do you need if they're coming? When you already got a protest going on. That's all like putting fire in the theater. I'll stand down so somebody else might have a comment, so I don't want to take all the time.
I see Austin's hand is raised, so go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, I just want to thank Reverend Walden for what she said and agree with all that. I mean, this was just SPD inciting a public panic. There was no tactical reason to make the city think that there was an armed group of white nationalists roving around when there wasn't. And then on top of that, you have the fact that the Seattle Police Department sent more officers to the Capitol riot than any other department. And the Capitol riot was a Proud Boy organized event. And so to make up a rumor that there's Proud Boys walking around, and then a few months later have Seattle police officers standing shoulder to shoulder with Proud Boys at the Capitol building, that's a very troubling sequence of events. Because at the end of the day, there just wasn't any reason to do this. This, as Reverend Walden said, this created a public panic, and it made the Seattle Police Department a source it caused the Seattle Police Department to produce a lack of public safety rather than creating public safety. And that is just unacceptable.
Can I say something very quickly? I think we need to be careful about our words when we say SPD sent officers to the Capitol. We didn't send officers to the Capitol.
Well, now that's true, but it's also my understanding that not all the officers that attended that event were terminated. Some of them remain on the force.
Well, some of them didn't participate in the way that happened to be illegals. But I mean, I don't want to.
So they were still at a Proud Boy sponsored event, just to clarify.
Okay, that you're starting to get into constitutional things. Sure. That if you were there and you didn't participate, or if you were in the area and you didn't participate, or you went back to your hotel, there's a whole bunch of things involved in whether or not the department or anyone could do anything about them being in Washington, D.C. So I just want to be careful about our words when we say SPD sent officers to the Capitol. That's not true. Officers went on their own recognizance. They went there, they paid their own way. This was not a sponsored event by any organization connected to the police department. Those officers went on their own. They made their own choice to go there. So I just want to be careful when we say we sent officers to the Capitol. We didn't do that.
That's fair. But my main point is the loss of public trust that something like this creates, because you have the police. I'm talking about the Proud Boys lie here right now.
Okay. Okay. Well, I don't want to call it a lie. I don't want to.
Well, it wasn't true.
Because
sorry, I just
that.
want to encourage folks to speak one at a time, if it's possible, just so we don't end up kind of speaking over one another. So.
Sure, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
No, go ahead, Officer Ball.
Okay, I don't want to call it a ruse. I don't want to call it a lie. I would rather call it a ruse. There are some tactical reasons why they did it. Now, was it a mistake to do it tactically? Because you can make tactical mistakes and decisions that don't work out or become a liability or a danger to people. That's possible, but I wouldn't call it a lie. We've gotten into problems before with the ruse, and I understand the contention, but I would say that we need to lean and look at what tactical reasons, what was the tactical reasons for why they announced that.
What were the, I mean, we have an investigation that says that tactically it was pretty indefensible.
Well, there might have been a situation with trying to move people out of an area, which I'm not saying is right or wrong. I'm just saying there were tactical reasons for why they announced that. And also, we know that people listen to our radio, and that they react to our radio, and they try to get advantages by listening to our radio.
I wonder, does anyone else? I appreciate the discussion that's happening, and I just know that there's a bunch of commissioners on the line today. I wonder, does anyone else have any discussion or any other points they want to raise, or does anyone else have any reflections on the statement and how they feel about it? Yeah, Reverend Hunter.
Well, I'm curious if there was an OPA finding on this, a mark created, and that we could take a look at.
There were OPA findings in this case. I mean, the high level of it. So, and if you Google in the agenda, the OPA case number under this action item, if you Google that case number, the case will come up, and then you can look at all the details. I think it's like 16 or 19 pages. The overall findings, because I'm not at the tip of my tongue, I don't have the exact details, but the overall findings were sustained against 2 supervisors who were supervising the ruse, and those 2 supervisors have since left SPD. So, there's no real discipline that's going to come from that. And then I believe that the 4 other officers who were involved in actually communicating in the radio chatter of the ruse, those findings were not sustained, I don't believe. And so they're not going to face discipline either. And so I think that's the overall results of the investigation, but there is a lot more detail in the OPA.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Do other folks have any comments? Okay. I wonder.
Sorry, Douglas.
I couldn't. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Alina.
Ranger, not you. Yeah, I was just gonna chime in and say, I hear that there are tactical reasons to move people. I would like to believe that there are smarter ways to do that. And I think especially given the nature of, direct racism and racial tension that that is an ongoing plight for Black community and other folks of color, that would have been something not to use to move people. I think obviously if people hear that, they're going to take measures to protect themselves, because what we've seen from that group from Proud Boys and other white nationalists is violence. And people have a right to protect themselves when they're faced with that. So I say that lightly. That's another conversation for a different time. But I do think it's problematic that was deemed to be a smart tactic to move people, because it made people panic, and it was harmful. So I think that the statement from the CPC is long overdue, regardless of what was found in the investigation. I don't think that was an appropriate messaging tactic that was used at all. And if we are moving this discussion forward and voting on releasing a statement, like that has my support. But I just wanted to chime in and kind of just affirm what Austin was saying. And Officer Mullins, I hear what you're saying too. And I don't agree, regardless of what the tactic was. I don't think that was an appropriate use of strategy.
Prachi, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having computer trouble today, so my computer is kind of behaving off of its own volition. But, kind of wanted to do the same thing as Alina and chime in and say that I am in agreement, right? I think that there is something to be said for the specific selection of the Proud Boys versus any other tool. And the fact that, this was the particular context that we were in at that particular time. To me, the selection of the Proud Boys versus anyone else or any other group is very intentional to me, and kind of goes beyond whatever tactical reason that may have existed at the time. I think there were probably, if there were looking at tactical reasons, there was probably a fairly wide spectrum or broad spectrum of options, and the selection of this particular one to me is problematic and telling. So just wanted to chime in and say that I agree with what's been said so far.
Yeah, I also agree. And so I'm not seeing any other hands, and we have a bunch of stuff to vote on. And so I just wonder if I think we could go ahead and take a vote on this and just see where we land. And so rules of order, I think we need a motion to support this, let's move forward with the statement, and then a second, and then we can vote. So is there a motion to approve this statement?
I'll file a motion to approve the statement. This is Alina.
I'll second it.
All right, the motion's been put forward and seconded. And so I think rather than take a consensus vote, we'll do a roll call vote. Someone can correct me if that's not how this would work. So Reverend Hunter?
Aye.
Officer Mullins?
Abstain.
Thank you. Austin?
Aye.
Alina?
Aye.
Legea? Legea? I'll come back to them. I'm voting aye. Reverend Walden?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
Joseph?
Aye.
Suzette?
Aye.
Prachi?
Aye.
Great. Legea, are you there?
Yes, sorry. Aye.
Okay, perfect. So the motion carries with
Douglas, I think we missed Erica.
oh, thank you. Yeah. Erica, thank you so much.
Aye.
Sorry, Erica. I'm just, trying to count everyone on the screen. Just missed you. So yeah, the motion definitely carries with everyone voting in support and one abstention. All right, moving on in the agenda. and thank you everyone for that discussion, is just kind of a follow-up and update on the Sunset Electric letter. Randy or Reverend Walden can add anything to this. From my understanding, we have not received a response to the Sunset Electric letter. We asked for, I believe we asked for a response by January either 7th or 17th, but that deadline has been missed either way. And we did, in a regular check-in with Interim Chief Diaz earlier this week, we did remind him that we have not received a response to that letter. And so I think we just wanted to kind of state for the record here in this meeting that we have not received a response to that letter. And that was something that came out of the police practices group and their work with the individuals who've been impacted around the East Precinct who were exposed to chemicals during the 2020 protests. And they've been unable to date to find out what chemicals they were exposed to. And so that's a really important effort, and we'll continue to follow up on that. Yeah.
Douglas, I just wanted to add to commissioners. Also, Chief Diaz mentioned that give him some extended time to be able to respond to the letter, because there are definitely some legal implications within the response, and that he just wanted to verify a few things, but that he had every intention of replying. There just were some things that he needed to look into and make sure that he is following legal parameters. So I also just wanted to add that to the piece that was shared.
Randy, I just had a quick follow-up question for that. Thank you very much for raising that with him. Did he give an approximate timeline or anything?
He did. Austin, great question. Chief Diaz asked for just a few more days. So I'm anticipating hopefully by the end of the week, but I'm going to loop back around regardless, so we can just get a firm date for sure.
Okay, thank you, Director Grant. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So that concludes our action item. So I think we're ready to enter public comment. Public comment is welcomed by the CPC. Individual speakers will be given up to 2 minutes to make comments about items on the meeting agenda today. Emily, would you please start public comment?
Of course. Right now, we only have one person registered for public comment. Before we begin that, is there anyone who'd like to register by voice? Okay, so Dr. Gale is our person who is registered, so give me just a moment to promote him to a panelist. Okay, Dr. Gale, can you speak?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, let me pull up the timer and then I can begin. Okay, Dr. Gale, whenever you're ready.
Good morning. The stated goal for the CPC and the Monitor community engagement meetings is to, quote, gain insights and ideas directly from the community, unquote. How is this possible when the community is systematically misinformed? The statistics and data that were presented by the Monitor are, in all recent instances at these meetings, the very same data acquired and presented by the SPD without any apparent form of verification or audit performed. In the Monitor's report presented last week, 39.88% of crisis contact outcomes are simply unaccounted for, not falling into the presented categories of arrested, referred to services, or emergency detention. A close inspection of the SPD dataset reveals many thousands of instances where, quote, disposition or the outcome of the crisis contact is labeled no action possible necessary, with thousands of additional instances labeled unable to contact other or simply blank, raising questions about the validity of including these contacts as involving an actual crisis and how that is defined. The credulity demonstrated by all agencies designed to hold SPD accountable is shocking and is one more indicator of the failure of a program of oversight in its 10th year. But the absurdity and obscenity of what was presented last week falls into shocking relief when one realizes that 6 days after the SPD murdered another person in mental health crisis, I discover a search of the SPD database reveals that the person killed a couple of weeks ago was unaccounted for in the crisis context. Also unaccounted for, Terry Caver and many, if not all, other SPD killings. The January 5th SPD killing was the 19th person suffering mental health crisis killed by the SPD since John T. Williams. In all these killings, they are deemed lawful and proper or not investigated. And yet last week we were forced to listen to the monitor to provide self-promotional statistics at a cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars to taxpayers, while the CPC helps promote this.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gale, and that concludes public comment.
Thank you. Is there any discussion of public comment, any response from anyone on the commission? If not, we'll move forward. Okay. So the next item,
is there
one?
Yeah, Douglas, is there anybody from community engagement that can speak to that? I wasn't able to be at last week's meeting or last night's meeting. Wait, is it last night? Yeah, because I had another meeting at the same time. But is there someone that can speak to those comments from community engagement?
No, I'm not from community engagement, but I was there. I could speak as a commissioner because I was there. I was on the Zoom. I thought that the meeting actually brought in a lot of information. You had a lot of people that was interested. And the week before, the engagement had invited the Mr. Nelson, SPD, to actually bring, and they brought us a slide, not a show, but slides to for the presentation. And there's been some improvement to the crisis intervention. And is it perfect? But no, it's not. But there's been some improvement in it, and that's what the meeting was about. But also, you had community people there. I mean, it was well attended. I mean, Mr. Gale, he always has, he's been against the Community Police Commission from the beginning, and so that he continues in that vein. But it was a lot of other community there, other than Dr. Gale. There's almost 90 people there, well attended, really engaged, asking questions, and some of them was hard questions. Some of them the monitor could answer, and some of them he could not, and that part is true. And then, it was probably one of the best engagements that we'd had in a long time. And again, the community was there, and the African American community was there. Sometimes other people speak for us, but don't let us speak. So they were there, and absolutely asked the questions. Dante was there. I mean, it was a lot of people there, and it was a lot of Black people there, and that was a good thing, because as I say, a lot of people speak for us, but don't always speak. Black people are not always speaking, and a lot of those people that was there has been in the community, out in the community, also know the people's names who've been killed. Actually knew some of the family of the people who've been killed, other than just bringing the names of the people who've been killed. So that's what you got. It was rich, and that's my opinion, and it might not be incongruent with Dr. Gale's opinion. Thanks.
Austin, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick thing that occurred to me listening to Reverend Walden's comment was I think the community engagement team has been doing a very good job putting these together. They've been very well attended, as Reverend Walden noted. I think one thing we could explore too is creating events that actually allow the folks that Reverend Walden mentioned to share their stories in more detail. Creating community engagement events that aren't just the monitor and SPD talking to the community, but that actually allow the community to sort of be the featured speakers. It just occurred to me that might be an interesting thing to explore, just based on the points Reverend Walden was making.
Thank you, Austin, for that. And I do know that staff is also thinking about ways to be able to do that and improve upon that. So thank you for that.
This is Alina. I wasn't able to attend the one last night, but I was there the week before. And, you know, I think one of the things that I don't agree with Dr. Gill on a lot of things, but I always appreciate his commitment to pushing, because that's hard in a space. And, you know, one of the things I do agree with him on is, you know, there was a point in the meeting last week where the monitor was asking, like, hey, let's get some stuff on paper. If you have ideas, share them with us. And ideas have been shared, to be quite frank. Ranger, stop. Ranger agrees. Ideas have been shared, but there's not any action on those things. At least from my perspective, I don't see a lot on that. And either for those recommendations that are put forward, it's either that people just don't want to do them or don't think that it's a worthy enough approach to doing that, or it's an alternative reason. And I don't know if other people can kind of speak to that. Reverend Walden, I appreciate you sharing, you know, that communities there. And I know that, like, communities of color are not monoliths, right? Like, I can't speak for every trans person. I can't speak for every Mexican-American person. We all have different opinions and different lived experiences. And Austin, thanks for elevating. Like, it would be really wonderful to hear from community that's directly impacted in the community engagement space. But instead of that being a tokenizing space where we just consistently ask for community to share their ideas, how can we make that a space where those things are actionable? There are ways for us to address folks in mental health crisis that are also armed with sharp edge objects that don't result in them dying. And I think if we were really committed to getting creative and trying some of those things, like, maybe we could have an impact, but I really don't see a commitment to that. So I appreciate the space. I also think the community engagement team is doing an amazing job engaging folks and having community there. It's not a slight on the community engagement effort, but I want to advocate and push for us to, instead of duplicating things that, in my opinion, feel tokenizing because people come and share their trauma and their emotional labor and then we don't do anything with it. The CPC cannot solve everything, right? We don't have a conversation about power is a completely different conversation that we don't have time for here, whether we should have it or not. But I think the change that a lot of community is advocating for, we do not have the political policy power to do that. The consent decree did not get withdrawn, or the attorney did not withdraw that motion because the CPC or OPA or OIG did anything to pressure that. That was because community got in the streets because they were tired and fed up. And it was that pressure that changed that outcome. So I just want to remind us that, yes, it's great that community is showing up, and how do we make sure this is not the same kind of things that we're asking them to do over and over and over again with no change in results.
Thanks, Anna. And those are definitely some of the issues that were raised in our strategic planning sessions. I saw Shailene's hand and then Reverend Walden.
Thanks. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, I'm sorry, my internet's been going in and out, so I've had with locations. I apologize for any background noise. So I was present at the meeting last week that took place where the monitor was present, and then the things that Dr. Gale talked about in terms of mental health crisis. And just a couple of things. So what I noticed overall is that a lot of the community feedback that was taking place was, a lot of it was actually agreeing with Dr. Gale on the points that he was making. And there was a lot of, and the conversation, as Reverend Walden said, it was really good. It was a well-attended meeting. It was a really good discourse and conversation. And I think leaving from that as staff, management meeting yesterday, speaking with Alicia, speaking with Brandy, we're still thinking through ways as staff how we can support and continue to alter whatever needs to be done to ensure that community is present, that they are heard, and they feel respected in that space. And so I think one of those ways is also making sure that we have commissioners there too. And so that you all can hear firsthand the conversations that are had, and some of you do attend, so let me say that, the conversations that are had, and really when you're in those conversations, you can feel the frustration points that people have in the process, what stakeholders, what actors they have in that process. And so I also want to just be careful when we talk about the information that the community shares with us and we say, hey, we want you to do this for us or offer your information. A lot of times information is offered in ways where people house it within their own work or it's shared publicly. And, you know, I want us to be careful with how we ask community to respond to us, because as CPC, OIG, OPA, most of the accountability system, the way we share information is we post it to our websites. And then we say, hey, everyone, come here to view it. So I think we should be careful. If I had to make a recommendation, be careful on the way we engage folks and how they share with us. Because when I go to these meetings, I'm on the clock, I'm at work. When the community shows up, this is their personal time they took out of their day to join us in the evening that they can spend with their families because it means something to them, because it matters and it's important. So as a staffer, as someone who serves the commission and works for the commission, it is my job and due diligence that I am listening very carefully and following the paths that they're asking me to take. And I encourage that from everyone, and a lot of us do, but I just want to make that very public, that that's a lot of things that staff will do, I know others will do, but us continuing to do that. So when we, in these meetings, these conversations, we are listening, responding when we can, and then just listening more often than figuring out, okay, you have offered this for me, let me find out about that and then report back out. So we're having a continuous communication loop where it's not just a listening session, but we're working in that moment and then providing feedback. Anything that I can do as a policy director, please let me know, because I want to continue to empower community, empower commissioners, and make this work continue to move forward so the needle actually moves, where people see it visibly shift. And we're not just saying that. So that's it, but it was a really good meeting. I appreciate everyone that was there.
Reverend Walden.
Well, thank you. A couple of things. Also, I think that the meetings that we're having right now is it's part of the work that we're doing with the monitors team to be able to. It's working on the sustainment and working on these on the 10 places where the city was found out of compliant. And the first one of those meetings was about the community police, was about CIT. The next meeting, I think, is going to be about the stops and detention, and also the Felicia's on the call. I mean, she's the one that's involved with the staff that's on that's doing the community outreach there. But also just to lean on to let her know that the CPC have been invited to come to a meeting, some of the to come to a meeting about about a new tool for the police department that's about the Boulder app and how to be able to work with someone who has, the police are moving forward on bringing some new equipment in to be able to work with someone who has a knife or wedge, a weapon as they call them. And I think it's going to be some more training coming out of the academy, some new training on that in the future. But in the meantime, Seattle Police Department is moving forward. That I think it's going to be a demonstration sometime in February with this new, it's called the Boulder app that they're interested in. And so that's it. I'm not going to have anything else to say on this. And I thank everybody. It was a great meeting. Thank you so much for your patience with me.
Thank you, Reverend Walden, and everyone who shared. I wonder if we're ready to move to the next part of the agenda, which was voting on and discussing the CPC legislative priorities for this session. And for that, I'm hoping I can turn it to Nia and Austin.
Sure, thank you. So we do have a draft document of our legislative priorities, and we also have a list of specific bills that the CPC should decide whether or not to support. So it looks like we're doing the legislative priorities first. I'm happy to answer questions about this. The way that these were developed, and all full credit to Nia and the rest of the staff for being the driving force behind developing these. They carried through the principles that that they relied on last year in drafting the CPC's first set of legislative priorities last year. And these remain consistent with that. These are also consistent with the goals of the Washington Coalition on Police Accountability. Both Nia and myself have been attending some of their meetings and meeting with some of their activists one-on-one as well. And so these legislative priorities are informed by those priorities. And as you can see, we're emphasizing accountability. We're emphasizing, consistent with what Chief Diaz recently did, we're emphasizing reducing the number of minor traffic stops. We're looking at banning tear gas in Washington State. And we're looking again at statewide changes to increase accountability, both through addressing the fact that arbitration is often used to mitigate accountability, and we're concerned about collective bargaining also being used, as it was in Seattle, to weaken accountability provisions passed at the city and state level. And we're exploring this year, looking at funding for research. In all likelihood, it's probably a little bit too late in the session for these funding for visas to come through, but we thought that it was a good idea to flag areas where we, as a commission, would like to see more research. So mental health response methods, best practices for community oversight organizations, best practices for police data collection, a unified court system. I admit that one's a bit of a passion project of mine. I think that states with unified court systems might have better resourced courts that are a little bit more effective when it comes to police oversight, but I think we need to study that more before we know if that's true. And also research on, as we were just talking about, the best way to conduct outreach to communities after violent incidents. Nia, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Nope, you covered everything perfectly.
Well, full credit to Nia again for really doing the vast majority of the work on this. She's been it's been great working with her. I really appreciate everything she's been doing.
Nia is a rock star. And thank you, Austin, for walking us through the list, and Nia for sharing your screen. So at this point, Austin, Nia, are we looking for a vote on just to approve this slate, like this, or this list of legislative priorities? That's right?
Yes, that's, yeah. Oh, sorry, Nia, go ahead. Nia's the procedural wizard.
So today we're looking for actually 2 votes. So the first thing that we went through is our priorities. So we need a vote on like these lists of priorities. The second aspect is, since the session has already started, there are a number of bills that fall under our priorities that are moving forward. So we'll also need a vote on that. But this is the first vote for this particular topic.
Got it. Well, I'll give it just a minute here to see, is there any discussion on these priorities before we move forward with a vote?
Can you just scroll up a little bit to where it starts with 1? This looks great. Thank you both for your work.
Elena, let me know.
Oh yeah,
okay.
I'm good.
Cool.
I'm done.
All good. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and see if can I get a motion to approve the legislative priorities?
This is Joseph Siga. I'll motion to approve the legislative priorities.
Thanks, Joseph. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard a second.
Yeah, sorry, that was me, Austin.
Thanks, Austin. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Officer Mullins opposes.
Thank you. Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries and the legislative priorities are approved. That is great. You can move forward with that for this session. And then Nia was saying that there's a list of bills and that was included with the meeting today. I'm just taking a look at that on my end. Oh, thank you for sharing your screen. Nia or Austin, do you wanna walk us through this? I believe we discussed this at the last meeting, but maybe just a refresher for everyone.
Yeah, I can give a very quick rundown because a lot of these did come up at the last meeting. Some of them are new though. So the first bill, 1202, creates a new civil cause of action for folks who have been injured as a result of, or are alleging injuries as a result of police misconduct. This just helps fill the gap that's the legal gap that's kind of created by qualified immunity, where it takes away a potential opportunity for people to try to protect their own rights in court. 1507 establishes a mechanism for independent prosecution, I believe through the Attorney General's office. Nia can correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially it gives the Attorney General's office the ability to also potentially initiate prosecutions related to police use of force if specific stakeholders like the county prosecuting attorney or elected officials or what have you request that the AG do that, is my understanding, but Nia can correct me if I'm wrong. And then 1589 appears to be one of a few bills that are responding to 1310 last session, which imposed a probable cause standard for use of force. This weakens that standard. And so the Washington Coalition on Police Accountability is opposing it. And we've suggested that we join them in opposition. 1690 is another addition. It restricts the ability of law enforcement officers to deceive people during interrogations. And then 1692 is one that I know very little about. I admit I haven't heard as much about that one. So Nia, if you want to talk about that one real quick.
Sure, sorry, I had to find my unmute button. So essentially, right now, you can, what can happen in the legal system is you can elevating a murder charge based on if someone was harmed, like through a drive-by shooting. So this piece of legislation is one that we pulled in based on like this issue of increased crime that the community has spoken out about. So that is essentially what it is. It's about removing that ability to elevate a criminal charge based on a drive-by shooting. And I see Shailene has her hand up.
I do. Sorry, I just wanted to speak a little bit more because I read this one as well. And I think Reverend Walden has done a pretty good job of just discussing the elevated crime that residents have been experiencing in certain parts of Seattle. And so the hesitation here when I read this was, okay, generally speaking, we don't want to continue to have these high thresholds or lower thresholds to increase someone's time that they spend in the system. But however, community has also spoken out about the increase in crime. So this is one where I'm just like, oh, we might have a split opinion when community So my only hesitation was, do we have more conversation in community to support or not support, wait until next session, or go ahead and support it based on our partners and what they're doing? So I wanted to offer that up because I read this and I was like, oh boy, I don't know what to do here. And not that that gives a whole lot of support for you all to decide, but I think it's something to consider. Both I've heard from community and from the commissioners. So maybe a little bit more conversation here if necessary.
And thank you, Shailene, for that. That was very thorough. I have heard a little bit about this one, and I think the current scuttlebutt is that it probably won't get a hearing this session. And so this is one that we can look at. But you know, if the discussion does end up becoming complicated, it's one we can take kind of a little bit more time to suss out, because as you said, the community feelings on this one are potentially complicated.
I also want to add, particularly for this and any other piece of legislation that we feel kind of split on in the moment. Last year, there were some pieces of legislation that we kind of kept an eye on, like throughout the session, and didn't necessarily decide one way or the other until we had further conversations, like through the state legislative agenda work group. So since this is one that, like as Shailene was saying, is really kind of split in terms of where we could end up based on, you know, conversations that we've had previously, that is also an option for this and any other piece of legislation that we discuss in this moment. And I see Reverend Walden has her hand up.
Thank you. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this because I might have, given my age, I might not have understood it. So bear with me. So is this to put forth something to actually be, okay, I'll just say it differently. My concern of what I'm hearing is that this is not going to help parents, help people who are suffering because their children has been killed. Maybe I didn't hear that correctly, but if that's where that's going, then you know, I would have to actually vote no against something like that. So maybe I just didn't hear it correctly, because as right now in King County in Seattle, I don't know how many people have been killed and since the first of the year, because I don't have the stats in my head, but I know almost 90 people were killed in Seattle. That's not King County, and we can say, you know, that this is a community police commission, but this is a problem, and it's a problem because people are suffering. It's not enough detectives to actually work on these cases. Parents don't get any information. I mean, the victim assistance unit was moved out of SPD. It's in SHD now. A lot of those people moved to the county. And so it's a big hole. It's a big hole down, and because of what happened last summer, it's a big hole. And according to the chief, and according from what I hear from parents, is that there's nobody getting back with them within the information. So it's a
Reverend Walden, you cut out.
I think that Gail always remind us, but there is a really high count of people who are suffering here because children have been killed. And, you know, mothers, for us, we're doing both. And now we can no longer talk about police or talk about community safety without doing both, and being just as upset and around police issues and how that harms the community, but also walking that walk with the parents who are suffering. So if I'm not aligned with that, I'll let the you know, the co-chairs or either whoever knows more about this than I do to actually tell me, you know, give me some more information. So I suggest that we wait on this one so we can have more clarity. I mean, and that's just my.
I don't think you're out of line at all, Reverend Walden. To clarify real quick, what the bill does, because I think waiting on this makes sense, especially if it's not going to move forward this session. But basically what it does is with aggravated first degree murder, you don't get, like aggravated first degree murder is life without parole. And so you get aggravated first degree murder because you have specific sentencing enhancements. There's specific things that happened during the crime that enhance it from first degree murder to aggravated. And right now, one of those is that the murder was a drive-by shooting. So this changes that, where a drive-by shooting would now just be regular first degree murder, where you could potentially be looking at parole instead of kind of automatically aggravated murder. But your larger point is really not about the technicalities of sentencing. And I think it's really, really important. I'm just giving a quick summary.
Seems like it might make sense to kind of just have this be one that we're watching this.
Sure, yeah.
And that it's not being moved on and we need more information.
Yeah. And so then 1719, so what this does is this fixes an issue that didn't get caught last session, where a ban on military equipment ended up banning 40 millimeter beanbag launchers and things like that. And the sponsors of the original bill did not intend to ban specific non-lethal weapons. They intended to ban high caliber rifles and things like that. And so 1719 fixes that oversight. 1726 is another bill that's intended to reduce the probable cause requirement for the use of physical force and make it easier to use physical force. So the Washington Coalition on Police Accountability is opposing that bill. So 1735 is intended to fix a potential interpretation of 1310 and some of the other bills where law enforcement officers reading those bills believe that they were not allowed to respond to behavioral crisis calls. And so this bill intends to fix that. We do have some, Washington Coalition on Police Accountability has some concerns about that. Nia, could you help me flesh those out?
Sure. So I think that there are, from my recollection, there are some forthcoming amendments to this piece of legislation that really do clarify in like the situations in which officers should still be responding, particularly with behavioral health crisis calls. So right now, some of those amendments are still being worked through. So I think that the thought here was to support this legislation, but maybe hold off on making statements until those amendments come through, just to make sure that we are fully aligned.
Thank you. And could you help me with 1788 too? Actually, that's another one I haven't had time to take a look at.
Sure. So 1788 is looking to put more restrictions around vehicular pursuits. So this was something that I don't recall being talked about in legislative session last year. So, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I think this actually rolls back some of like the safety protocols that are meant to be put around vehicular pursuits and restricting them in certain situations. So our goal here was to oppose removing some of those finer restrictions around vehicular pursuits.
Got it, thank you. And then SB 5522.
Officer Mullins, were you raising your hand? I'm sorry, Austin.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to wait my turn.
Oh, go ahead.
I heard a proposal, and I've heard this before, about restricting or taking away of high-powered weapons or rifles away from officers. So every time I bring this up, or I bring this up for people to discuss or to talk about, doesn't necessarily mean that I'm in favor or not in favor of it. I just want to get some understanding from from you guys about what the mentality is about wanting to change things. So can someone explain to me why you would come up with a bill to restrict officers, trained officers in a rifle program or in a shotgun program to take those weapons away from police officers?
I believe that this bill is focusing primarily on 50 caliber and above. I think it does explicitly permit shotguns, for example, and is looking more at things in the 50 caliber kind of weapon of war range.
When does SPD use a 50 caliber weapon?
I don't know, but this bans it.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong on the details on that, but my scan of the bill, it looked like that's what they were focusing on, was things like automatic grenade launchers and 50 caliber weapons and other stuff that's pretty, as Officer Mullins would agree, pretty inappropriate for an American city.
Wow.
No, you're correct.
I'm sorry, my sound cut out.
Oh, I was just saying that Austin was on target.
Did that answer your question, Officer Mullins, or can we give you more?
Yes, it did. And I'm sorry for the confusion. I thought the 40 caliber dimensions were taken away from us too.
Yeah, and that's what that's intending to clarify, is that something like a 40 millimeter beanbag launcher would not be banned by the previous bill. That's the fix that they're intending.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Oh, and then so the remaining two, so we have SB 5522, which increases the penalty for assaulting a law enforcement officer. Obviously, officer safety is important, and law enforcement officers should not be assaulted. The Washington Coalition on Police Accountability, though, is concerned about this one, I believe, because the focus is on unlawful assemblies and demonstrations and things like that. And so they're concerned that increasing the laws in that specific context could lead to more force being used against protesters and more arrests of protesters. Nia, do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then SB 5485, this one will probably be experiencing a few different changes, but the overall goal of, and so this one might be another one we want to keep an eye on, but the overall goal is to bring state policy more in line with the kinds of policies that were announced by Chief Diaz, de-emphasizing police involvement in specific minor traffic violations.
Thank you, Austin and Nia. I'd like to thank the State Legislative Agenda Committee for its work to prepare our legislative priorities, track these bills and create this list of bills. I think it would be great, and I appreciate the discussion. It was a good discussion that happened kind of as we were going through bill by bill. I think it would be great and strategic to join our voices to our statewide partners at the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. And so I'm wondering if there is a motion to move forward with this list of bills and kind of our position on them, and then we could take a vote and folks can weigh in through their vote whether they support moving forward with it or not.
One thing I will say before we introduce that motion is I do want to acknowledge the concerns folks had about, I think it was 1692, the concerns that Reverend Walden and other folks expressed. I wonder if there's a way to move to support this overall list minus that. I'm not sure procedurally how we would do that, but I don't want to bulldoze over the concerns that that Reverend Walden raised. Also, Reverend Walden, I see, has her hand up. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I thought that was an old hand, but
Yeah, she took it down. Yeah, no, actually, thanks, Austin. That's where my brain was going, but I didn't articulate that. So I wonder, so yeah, I'd love a motion to move forward with this agenda with the change that we're just tracking HB 1692 rather than supporting it at this time. We're just monitoring it for the session.
I'll move to support an amended document, as being currently amended of these bills.
This is Alina. I'll second.
Thank you so much. The motion has been put forward and seconded. All in favor of supporting this list of legislation as drafted and amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention.
Okay. I heard the motion carries and there was one abstention. So we'll move forward with that list of legislation. Thank you, and policy team, State Legislative Agenda Group, for your work. The next item on the agenda is the Management Action Recommendations Review and Vote. Wondering if I can invite Reverend Hunter or someone from the policy team to lead this section and vote.
Sure, I'll start out, and I too think that Nia is a rock star. Let's see. First up, unless Nia, you'd like to go talk through this?
Sure, yeah, I can. Okay. So in the last meeting we held, we discussed the potential selection criteria for the types of management action recommendations we would review through the police practices work group. So today we're looking to take a vote to, one, land on this as our selection criteria. So public attention and concern, previous patterns of SPD action, or areas where we know that SPD has struggled. Last two are a little similar, but slightly different. So we want to vote to use this as our selection criteria for which management action recommendations we will review. Also, if we can get agreement on the form that I will put up after we vote on this, so that the police practices work group can move forward with starting those MAR reviews.
I move that we accept this criteria as set out right here on the slide, with public attention and concerns being first, with also adding previous SPD pattern of action in areas where we know SPD struggles as our criteria as we review the management action recommendations.
I'll step away from the chair and second that motion.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Fantastic. All right. And then there was a form to take a look at?
Yes, pulling it up right now.
Thanks, Nia.
All right. This is the form that we are intending to use for these MAR reviews. So we've gone over this, I want to say it was probably the second meeting in December. So we would have your typical items like your OPA case number, the date it was closed, the topic, how we've categorized it in the accountability tracker. Then we would have a case summary, whatever recommendations OPA made from within the MAR. And then there would be space for CPC analysis. So we would take a look at that MAR and see if we, like, for instance, see any aspects of the case that may have been overlooked by OPA. And then we would have our recommendations and signatures at the bottom.
And I move that we approve this form for you so that the police practices group can move forward.
This is Austin, I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Awesome. The motion carries, and I'd like to offer a big thanks to the police practices work group, committee, and policy team for moving this forward, and appreciate your patience because we know we wanted to vote on some of this stuff at the last meeting when we were able to. And the next, I'll keep our police practices folks here to share about the letter, the police practices letter, which is on the agenda next for a vote. Reverend Hunter or Nia, is there anyone who could just kind of give us a quick overview of the letter or just share a couple sentences about its intent?
Well, I can say that we started working with this. I believe it was last June. The police practices group, we were responding to revised use of force policies put out by SPD and Chief Diaz. And what this letter is basically saying is that we could have policy recommendations and give our opinions on various policies ad nauseum, but if there is no police accountability, it's like we're wasting our time. And so there were a long list of use of force policies. We made recommendations. Most of them were denied. And then we were thinking about responding again and just said, you know, this is just crazy. We're just wasting our time. And so we just wanted to put a letter out there saying, we think that police practice, that officers need to be held accountable for their actions and it not be bargained away. And if that is not happening, then nothing else really matters as far as what we say. So that's what this letter is about.
Well, I certainly fully support that message. And it also kind of relates to the op-ed, which we'll discuss next in terms of how holding officers accountable for misconduct is at the heart of so many of these issues. And if we don't have that, anyway, you already said it, we can make recommendations ad nauseum and it won't matter. So is there a motion to support this letter, which the police practices work group is putting forward?
I make a motion to support the letter. I step away from the chair and make a motion to make a motion to support the letter.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. And again, thank you to the police practices work group, Reverend Hunter, Nia, for all your work. The next item on the agenda is the behavioral health op-ed. And I don't know who's the best person to speak to this. I could speak to it, but I'll just pause and see if there's someone else who can jump in or wants to jump in.
Hey Douglas, this is Catherine. I'm happy to jump in as well. So kind of from a high level, this op-ed, it came out of the behavioral health work group's work plan. And I just have to say a huge, tremendous thank you to Nia for all of her incredible work on this and drafting of this op-ed. Essentially, it highlights a pattern of violent and lethal responses from SPD involving people who had been in mental health crises and calls for stronger accountability.
Thank you. Any discussion, or because I know this is the first time, today's meeting is the first time we're looking at the op-ed. Is there any discussion on the message or anything else? Otherwise, we'll take a vote.
I think it's well done. Are you looking for a motion to approve this for distribution?
Sure.
Well,
Yeah.
I move that we accept this letter and distribute it as widely as possible.
I second that. This is Catherine.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
I abstain.
All right, so the motion carries with one abstention. Great work, everyone, on that. We pull up the agenda. So the next item is the 2022 Co-Chair Slate. I'll just say a quick piece and then I'll invite Brandy or Reverend Walden to jump in too. So I don't have a 2022 Co-Chair Slate. You know, including myself, I'm not running for election of co-chair. My plan was to serve as interim co-chair after we had our two past co-chairs unexpectedly step down. And that term was scheduled to end at today's meeting. And so we're currently in a situation where, you know, we need to figure out how to move forward. And I think a workable plan in my mind is to table the co-chair slate vote for a month or 2 months, essentially like revisit it in the near future. And in the meantime, continue the great recruitment work that Brandy is leading to add new commissioners and just kind of see where we're at in a month or two. And in the meantime, look for, this is me making a request, which I'll follow up on, but make a request of everyone on the commission to get help, essentially just facilitating these meetings. You know, I'm committing myself to continuing to be available to help facilitate, but it would just be very helpful to have additional support. Part of the reason I don't want to run for co-chair at this time is just I have a really busy next 6 months. I'm wrapping up grad school and I have a capstone project and an independent study, and work is getting busier, and I'm just stretched really thin right now. So if you can't tell from like the big bags under my eyes. So that's where we're at. Brandy, Reverend Walden, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, well, thank you, Douglas. You and Catherine stepped up to do a hero's job in an unexpected time. I mean, bylaws did not cover that, what happens when people step down. I stepped up to say that I would be here to help guide or either be able to answer questions and to be in the background. And I did maintain that, and I just wanted to really acknowledge Catherine. I mean, she was probably the most gentle, kindest person that I've worked with in Seattle in such a long time. She brought so much enthusiasm, and I underscore kindness, because kindness is such a good, it's such a good virtue to have when you're working on hard issues. And Douglas is thorough and catches all the things that I miss and stuff like that. And I really appreciate him. And so the goal is to have people to rotate, facilitating the meetings. I will continue to actually show up at the meetings that the co-chairs go to. And so the co-chair, I mean, just stepping up to organize the meeting, to actually facilitate the meeting is the word I'm looking for. Facilitate meeting would be probably what we would just be asking all of the other all the other commitment that the co-chairs usually involved with. I would continue those because Douglas will be tied up in school and stuff like that. So that's what we're asking. If you don't have to answer that today, but that's what the plan is, and I think that that's part of we can suspend the rules. I mean, I think that there's a piece in the bylaws that give us a way forward. So this has been an unusual year, and this is a commission-led. It's led by commissioners, and it is a hybrid. It's a hard model. I mean, because most places are everybody's city employees, and we're not, and so people have other lives. But you know, I've stayed just because I guess I'm one of these people who like to go to meetings. What can I say? That's my grandkids say. I was hoping there was somebody else that liked to go to meetings besides myself. You know, I mean, I have a partner. I mean, you know, what can I say? But this is the plan, so we can have some discussion about it. And I was hoping that Dr. Hunter, she's busy too with all the things that she does. I mean, you know, one of the things I've learned through life is that busy people get it done. I'm just give a little joke. It's a little small joke because I'm not a joker. When I was selling Tupperware, I started asking women who wasn't busy, and they always said no. But when I asked women who were busy, they always said yes. It's something about busy people who know how to say yes. So anyway, we have busy people. So think about how busy people can say yes. So that's all I have to say about it. Thank you, Douglas. You've just been a wonderful. And I want to thank Pachi, because Pachi stepped up last year. And Pachi, I think she's here today. Pachi and Reverend Williams, so he could make it through. And I want to thank the people who have. I mean, it's an opportunity to grow yourself and to actually learn a lot and to work with wonderful people. So thanks.
I think the only thing that I would add besides the thank yous before is it has definitely been really great to work with. I got to work with Reverend Walden 2 go-rounds. So it's always been a pleasure to work with them. Douglas and Catherine did an amazing job. I'm preparing myself for what is inevitable of having new supervisors pretty much every year. And last year was a unprecedented situation because of the step down. But I just want to really employ people to also think about how you all can continue to engage as commissioners, even outside of the leadership capabilities that come with the job, right? I think of all of you as really my supervisors, if you think about it, since this is commission driven, but I would really love to see more engagement and participation from everybody, more commitment and dedication. There are a handful of commissioners that have really towed the line and been kind of carried the weight of the entire commission. And I'm so grateful and so thankful for them. But I think for it to be equitable, I think for it to be motivating, for us to be able to do all of the things that we can do, we really need everybody. This is a joint effort. And so I've reached out to several folks already via email, text messages, and calls. And, you know, I hate bothering folks on one level because I know there are so many, you know, champions that are a part of this commission, but it is definitely a huge commitment and a commitment that we can actually do and be prosperous at. And be really beneficial to community if everybody is showing up and giving 1,000%. So what I'm asking, even beyond the co-chair situation, is that you all take some time this week and hopefully over the next week or so to think about your place here at the commission, your role, how you want to show up. Is this a good fit? Is this the right time to be a part of the commission? Do we need to make space for other folks? How we can be intentional about how we're recruiting community members and actually folks that can have a little bit more bandwidth potentially, or if there are things that we need to shift and look at, I'm just asking that you all have those conversations with me so we can talk about how to be sustainable and how to be able to move forward. You all have a tremendous team that is in the background, staff-wise. We're ready to lift up this work. We're doing as much as we can. We would love to be able to do more, but we need you to be partnered with us to do more. So again, I'm asking for a recommitment from commissioners around the work that we need to do in 2022. Thank you.
I guess I just want to see if does anyone have any thoughts or response or comments, question.
This is Tasha Johnson. I would have raised my hand, but no one did so. But I want to say thank you, Brandy, for that. And I think that it's important that we do a reassessment every, well, whenever we think about it or whenever we feel like we need to. So in the new year, though, I think that it's a good time for us to do that. And I myself am looking at my bandwidth, my responsibilities at, within my job has changed. And I'm doing that reassessment at this time too. So I appreciate you bringing that, calling that out, because that makes sense to me for us to do that for ourselves and for the, not only for ourselves, but the community and for the commission, because I don't think that it's fair that there are, a handful of people that are carrying the weight of the commission every week. And I think we all can see who those people are. So thank you for stepping up and for being able to do that. But I also would like to be a person that's able to commit to the responsibilities that are due. I will also say when I first started, I did not know the amount of work that we were committing to. So having known that, I'm just letting you and everyone on the commission know, I guess at this time, that I am doing that reassessment for myself as well, and will determine the recommitment very soon. But thank you for calling that out. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you, Tasha.
I might ask, how many vacancies do we have on the commission?
Absolutely. Hold on just a second. I have that information. So we have 3 open seats for the mayor. We have 2 open city council seats, and then we have 1 CPC seat. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just going to echo gratitude for Reverend Walden and the long time that you've been here and supporting the commission and helping us move work forward. You obviously have knowledge like that is irreplaceable, and just your presence and advocacy and how you show up that's priceless for us. So I want to extend my deepest gratitude to you and to Catherine and to Douglas for stepping up in that role too. I'm sure that was a shock for it to continue beyond what you thought it was going to. Brandy, you and I started together on the commission, and this has become your job now. And I think maybe both of us when we started were probably like, wait a second, this is a lot that we signed up for. So just echoing what Tasha has shared too. And I'm also in that process of like just deep reassessment of like, where am I most effective and where can I be of best service, and do I have capacity for this? Is it time to move aside and elevate, people that I feel like don't always get asked to sit at tables like these, but that their voices are missing from the table. So just going through that kind of reassessment process too, and thinking about people that we could recommend to fill the seats outside of the people that usually get recommended. Like, we don't need more busy people. Like, I hear what you're saying too, Reverend Walden. Like, how can you be a good kind of busy, but not like you're stressed out too busy? Because I kind of hear what you're saying too, Reverend Walden. Yeah, busy people just are like, well, I don't have a choice. I'm just going to get it done. And you're one of the busiest people I know, Reverend Walden. So I think maybe you've got some strength. I don't, but just kind of reimagining like who are those people that have more capacity, I guess I should say. They're still busy in community, but have more capacity to show up in ways that maybe some of us who are in grad school or have 5 jobs or are just taking a lot don't always have the same way to show up. So I'm reflecting on that too, and just wanting to be in wherever I'm most impactful. I think that's something we can all kind of reflect on. So just wanted to extend my gratitude. I know that the staff is like, I know that y'all are overwhelmed too. And I hope that the commission can be a space where we're all able to share the work so we're all a little less overwhelmed, because there's a lot of it to do. So just wanted to extend my gratitude, and then also just kind of in the same place as Tasha, just like re-examining, kind of like, to your point, Brandy, just like, yeah, is this the time? Is it time to move on or elevate someone else? Or like, what are things I need to let go of so I can fully show up in the way that I want to? So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Eileen. I appreciate that.
Is there any other comments or thoughts or reflections?
This is Tasha Johnson again. Can I come back in and make another comment?
Please.
All right. I too want to echo that Reverend Walden has been, I don't even know what to say. I think I would have felt lost over this last year without your wealth of knowledge, and truly appreciate what you bring to the commission. And I don't know what your availability is going forward, but you repeatedly mentioned that this is your last year. If there is any way that you could serve as counsel on the commission, that would be my recommendation, because I would have truly felt lost over this last year without your knowledge and experience and everything that you brought to the table. So I want to specifically say thank you. And again, you might be ready to move on, but I don't think that the commission is ready to move on from you. So that's all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tasha. And thanks for everyone for chiming in an important discussion. So looking forward to folks thinking about this and recommitting. Go ahead, Reverend Walden.
I was just going to say, looking at the time, we might want to extend it. We might want to ask for a few more minutes and to amend the agenda to give us about 10 more minutes or 12 more minutes on the agenda, so that we can get through the other part of the agenda. It's just a recommendation, so you don't have to take that. But it's 10:51 right now, so so anyway.
Reverend Walden, I've heard from a few people that they have a hard stop at 11. So
okay.
Well, I'll let you all take that vote, but I think we might run into a facilitation issue and quorum.
All right. I don't think that's fine. With me, maybe we can kind of get through it then, and so we can be timely, and because we only got like 8 minutes, so we'll have to make.
Sounds good. We'll just see where we get by 11. And yeah, I do need to hop off at 11. I'm facilitating another meeting right after this for work. And so yeah, if folks want to extend the agenda, that's great. I just won't be able to facilitate it. So we have department updates. Is there anyone here from the City Council?
I'm actually going to be the City Council update, you all.
Okay.
Newell was unable to join us, but sent their update in advance and wanted me to share with everyone that they're going to start developing the Public Safety and Human Services 2022 committee work plan, and that they're hoping that the commission will participate and provide any feedback to said work plan. Leadership actually meets with Councilmember Herbal for our check-in on Thursday. So we'll begin to ask questions about that, and we'll hopefully have a report out for you all. But he wanted me to share that they're beginning their work plan for 2022, and they want the commission to be a part of that.
Thank you. Is there anyone here from the mayor's office with an update? Okay. Is there anyone here from the monitoring team? I think Ron.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, Community Police Commission. I, first of all, would like to extend a thank you and gratitude to your executive director and to your community engagement director, Brandy and Felicia, for all of the work that went into creating and implementing the first community engagement, the first two community engagement sessions on CIT. It featured a broad spectrum of community voices, which is what the focus was. And it was one of the most robustly participated in meetings that I've attended in years. So a thank you and kudos to both of you. Commissioner Austin Field asked me on a couple of occasions for a policy explanation of the methodology that went into use of force statistics. I did present that to him. For any other commissioners who were interested in that question, I would assume that Mr. Field will be providing that to you. I would like to request of the executive director that I be provided with a copy of the very excellent update on legislative priorities presented by Nia and Austin. I would also like to receive copies of the MAR review recommendations, the police practices letter, and the mental health crises, the behavioral health op-ed on mental health crises. Those were not in the materials that I received. I only received the agenda. And I hope you appreciate that I have a job to do all this documentation to the monitor team. I look forward to the February 8th community engagement meeting regarding stops and detentions. I think that is particularly important in view of recent developments in the city, adopting a change in certain policies in that regard, and also to use of force on March 8th. Reverend Walden, I'm not articulate enough to express what you mean to the police reform effort in the city and to the Community Police Commission. I've enjoyed working so much with you. I commend you, Douglas, for stepping up, and Catherine Seibel and Prachi with regard to this effort. And I just, well, I've said thank you and I've expressed my gratitude, and I'll leave it at that.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone here from DOJ?
Yeah, hey, good morning. It's Matt Waldrop. Just to echo Ron's comments, I appreciate all the planning that went into the community engagement meeting, and that the department was invited. I thought it was a very robust discussion. And then other than that, just looking forward to the upcoming engagement sessions on stops and detentions and use of force.
Thank you. Is there anyone here from OPA? Not hearing anyone. And is there anyone here from SPD?
Brian Maxey is going to be speaking to give the update for SPD. Let's make sure that he can. Give us just a second, you all. Emily, if you could make Brian a panelist, for some reason it won't allow me to do it.
Hi, Brandy. I've sent a few requests for promote to panelist from Brian, but I can do an allow to talk. Maybe it's not working on his end. Give me one. Oh, area. Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me, and thank you very much for today. It was a very informative session, and as many of you know, I have rejoined the Seattle Police Department as the Chief Operating Officer. So I will be carefully engaging with our accountability partners, including the Community Police Commission. And as you develop all of this rather large body of work, please loop me in on how we as the department can be better engaging on this. There's a lot to catch up on. There's a lot that I do not know, and regular communication, helping engage will certainly lead to better understanding at the Seattle Police Department and how we can better meet your expectations. Just as far as an update on what we've been working on, I just wanted to highlight the Chief's decision to eliminate 4 categories of minor traffic stops. These are not criminal violations. They are all civil infractions, but direction went out to the department to no longer enforce tabs on license plates. Expired tabs will no longer be a primary reason to stop a vehicle. Similarly, the requirement under the SMC that there be 2 plates will not be enforced as a primary stop. A vehicle must have a plate of some kind, but they do not need to have the front plate. As far as the SMC on windshield obstructions, the chief has made it clear that items hanging from a rear view mirror or small cracks in the windshield will not be enforced as a primary stop. Clearly, if there is major spider cracking or true obstruction by snow or fog, that will still be enforced, and then bicycle helmet violations will not be enforced. Again, thank you for today. Thank you for the forum the other night on crisis, and I really look forward to engaging in the future.
Thank you so much. I thank you so much for that update. And we look forward to working with you in the future also. And welcome. I mean, I know you from the other time you were here in the city and working with the community, working with the consent decree. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Reverend Waldo.
Yeah,
You're
thank you,
welcome.
Brian, for joining us today. Do we have anyone here from OIG? Well, I know we do. If we could have someone from OIG give us an update, and then we're gonna, after Inspector General Judge speaks, we're gonna wrap the meeting, you all.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone on the call. I appreciate I have 0 minutes to give my update. So I just want to start by echoing all the thanks that folks have given to the people that stepped up to take over the co-chair position, Douglas, Catherine, Prachi, and especially Reverend Walden. I really appreciate everything over the years that you've done to help me and help OIG out. And we can't lose you in this work. You're just too important, and everything you bring to it is too important. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you've been doing, and I'm sure will continue to do. The traffic stops work, which has been mentioned quite a bit today, was the first bit of fruit that has been born from the project that we started with the letter that we sent to the chief last May. The work is going to continue. We've got a really robust partnership going on with SPD, with SDOT, and with a lot of community stakeholders. We've got a work group that's going. And so, this is just the first phase of much ongoing work to rethink bringing police into contact with community, especially in this traffic stop context. So that work will continue. Also, I'm interested in talking at some point when we have time about ruses and work that we might be able to do together about addressing the use of deception in policing. We started some work, and it began as joint work with CPC on retraining and developing a policy for officers who are interviewing suspects and witnesses and victims. And the notion that deception is a good tactic to use in that, I think is largely debunked by that work we were doing. And so I'm hoping to pick back up on that project of developing the policies around that would address the use of deception by police in investigations. So that's about the quickest update I can give you right now. Thank you very much. Hope everybody stays well.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. Thank you for the incredible work that you do and you help us do. I want to conclude the meeting and have just make sure everyone has a wonderful rest of their day and a great week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.